So here's the question nobody seems willing to ask out loud anymore. Are we finally seeing the bigger picture come into focus? Or are people still pretending that Remy Ma is simply a rapper who occasionally steps into television projects? You won't believe this, but what I'm about to break down tonight goes far beyond celebrity gossip. This isn't rumor packaged as reporting, and it's definitely not another recycled headline being passed around for clicks. What we're looking at is a pattern, and if there's one thing this industry never hides for long, it's a pattern. Tonight's conversation about Remy Ma isn't the same one you've been seeing all over blogs and social media. We're talking about the moves happening behind closed doors, the opportunities quietly stacking up, and why some entertainment insiders believe Remy Ma could be putting together one of the smartest transitions from hip-hop into Hollywood we've seen in years. So grab your drink, get comfortable, and stay with me on this, because once all the pieces connect, it's impossible to look at the situation the same way again. Let's begin with the most obvious clue. 2 Lifetime movies. Read that one more time. Not 1, 2. And if you're scrolling past that thinking it's no big deal, slow down for a second, because this matters. In entertainment, landing 1 Lifetime film can be a notable achievement. Landing 2 starts to tell a completely different story. And when you add the ongoing chatter about another project quietly taking shape behind the scenes, it starts looking a lot like what industry insiders call a development relationship. In simple terms, that means the network isn't bringing Remy Ma in for a one-time appearance anymore. They're investing in her future. And trust me, that's where things get interesting. For anyone who doesn't closely follow Lifetime, understand that this network has become one of the most reliable homes for female-driven stories, especially projects centered around powerful Black women. We're talking about a platform that has elevated careers, amplified personal stories, and in some cases completely reshaped public perception for actresses, singers, athletes, and public figures alike. Even more important, Lifetime's audience isn't casual. It's a loyal, engaged, multi-generational fan base that connects deeply with stories of struggle, survival, and perseverance. That's exactly the audience Remy Ma is reaching now, not once, but twice, with rumors of even more on the horizon. And here's something people often overlook. Networks don't hand out second opportunities as favors. They study the ratings, they monitor social engagement, they analyze audience demographics, they examine every metric available, and when those numbers come back strong, they make another call. That's how business works. So when you see Remy Ma attached to another Lifetime project, don't file it under a simple career win. File it under proof that a major television network believes she can consistently bring viewers back. And in this business, that kind of proof is what transforms a temporary opportunity into a lasting partnership. And trust me, the executives making those big decisions see all of this. The producers see it too. The people sitting in those boardrooms where projects get approved are constantly watching where culture is moving next. Now here's where the conversation takes an even more interesting turn, because this is the part most people are overlooking. Let's compare Remy Ma's current position to other female rappers from her generation. Seriously, how many artists from that era are consistently landing multiple network television opportunities right now? How many are balancing acting projects while still maintaining relevance in music? And how many managed to pull that off after going through a highly publicized legal chapter that many thought would permanently shut certain doors? Once you start naming people, the list becomes surprisingly small. And no, this isn't about discrediting anybody else's success. It's about recognizing that Remy Ma has carved out a lane that very few artists have been able to occupy with this level of momentum. She's no longer simply a rapper experimenting with acting opportunities. She's not an actress who happened to have a rap career either. What she's building looks much bigger than either label. It's what industry observers would call a multi-platform brand ecosystem. She's operating across several lanes at once, and little by little, the entertainment business is beginning to recognize her that way. Now let's talk about the comparison everyone keeps bringing up in the comments, because if I don't mention it, somebody else will. A lot of people have been discussing what Pap is doing during this same period. The common perception online is that while Remy Ma is attending development meetings, filming projects, appearing on red carpets, and expanding her entertainment footprint, Pap seems to be focusing on live streams, appearances, theme songs, sports events, and content connected to conversations that often revolve around other people rather than his own long-term ventures. That's not my personal take. That's the conversation happening across social media. You'll see it under almost every discussion involving the couple. And look, this channel isn't here to attack anybody. That's not the goal. What is worth discussing, however, is the difference in strategy, because strategy tells you everything. One person appears focused on building assets and creating new opportunities. The other appears focused on responding to whatever headline is currently dominating the moment. And historically, in entertainment, builders tend to win over reactors. Why? Because builders create the platform. Reactors simply participate in somebody else's spotlight. That's how this industry has always worked. But here's the bigger picture most people are missing. The Lifetime movies aren't actually the main story. They're the evidence of a much larger story unfolding behind the scenes. Remy Ma is currently occupying a position in hip-hop that very few women have ever been allowed to hold. In many ways, she's answering a question the industry has quietly debated for decades. Can a woman in hip-hop survive major personal setbacks, overcome public scrutiny, navigate motherhood, rebuild after adversity, and still emerge stronger than before? For years, the industry answer seemed to be no. There was this unspoken belief that female rappers had expiration dates, that motherhood would slow them down, that legal troubles would end their momentum, that marriage drama would damage their brand, that age itself would eventually close doors, and that facing multiple challenges at once would be impossible to recover from. What makes Remy Ma's current run fascinating is that she's challenging every one of those assumptions in public, one project at a time, one appearance at a time, one headline at a time. Whether it's a Lifetime movie, a high-profile remix, a magazine feature, a sports-related appearance that expands her visibility beyond music, or the reports of another project potentially waiting in development, every move seems to be adding another layer to the story. And that's why I don't see this as a comeback. Let me repeat that because it's important. This doesn't feel like a comeback. Comebacks are temporary. They create a spike and then fade away. What we're witnessing looks more like a long-term legacy play. The difference is massive. A comeback creates attention. A legacy run creates infrastructure. It grows year after year, project after project, until one day people realize the artist they once knew only for music is now helping shape the next generation of entertainment from behind the scenes. The audience seems to recognize that too. I've been watching the conversations surrounding Remy Ma for weeks, and some of the most interesting analysis isn't coming from media outlets, it's coming directly from the fans. People are saying things like, she's going to outlast every era she has been part of. Others are predicting she'll eventually launch her own production company. Some are even comparing her future path to icons who successfully expanded far beyond music. And honestly, that's where things get really interesting. When fans start placing your name alongside entertainment powerhouses who successfully transitioned into acting, producing, hosting, and business ownership, they're telling you how they view your ceiling. They're telling you what level they believe you belong on. Now let me take this one step further, because almost nobody is talking about the real end game yet. Ownership, producer credits, intellectual property, equity. That's where the true power lives. Historically, once a performer headlines multiple successful projects, the next move isn't simply landing another role. The next move is securing a producer credit. That's the shift that changes everything, because the moment Remy Ma begins attaching herself as a producer rather than only talent, she moves from being hired for a project to helping own the project itself. That's the transformation point. That's the difference between being a celebrity and becoming a business force. We've seen this blueprint play out repeatedly across entertainment. First, you star, then you negotiate, then you produce, then you own, then you influence what gets created next. And here's the reason that matters. If the rumors about another project are even partially accurate, and if producer involvement becomes part of that conversation, then we're looking at a completely different phase of Remy Ma's career. At that point, anyone still viewing her strictly as a rapper will need to reevaluate the entire picture, because that's when personal fame starts evolving into something much bigger. There's also another reality worth acknowledging. For a very long time, the music industry treated black women in hip-hop as if there was only room for one at a time. Opportunities were limited, the spotlight was narrow, and while one woman sat in the industry's chosen seat, countless others with talent were often pushed to the sidelines. That's the history many fans are looking back on when they watch what's happening now. What makes Remy Ma's journey so fascinating is that she came up in an industry that constantly tried to define her limits, yet she spent years proving those limits never applied to her. Almost every major chapter of her career has challenged a rule that many people believed was permanent. The industry said a rapper couldn't return from prison and reclaim relevance. She did exactly that. Then they claimed motherhood would slow her momentum and push her out of the spotlight. That prediction didn't age very well either. They said public relationship drama would permanently damage her image. Somehow, she moved through that chapter too. Then came another rule, the belief that female rappers couldn't successfully transition into film and television later in their careers. Yet here we are watching Remy Ma make that move in real time across multiple platforms. Another industry myth suggested female rappers couldn't attract audiences across generations, but look at the audience surrounding her today. Fans from the Terror Squad era, reality television viewers, newer streaming era listeners, and mainstream television audiences are all paying attention at the same time. That's not normal. That's the influence, and that's exactly why the conversation around her feels different right now. Every limitation that was supposed to stop her has been challenged publicly, and audiences have watched it happen step by step. That's one reason people keep mentioning her alongside larger entertainers. Continue investing in projects connected to her. At a certain point, you're no longer testing a theory, you're investing in a proven result. Now here's something else worth paying attention to: timing, because timing changes everything. We are living through a period where audiences are completely reshuffling who gets their attention. Streaming platforms are fighting for viewers. Development teams are hunting for recognizable personalities who already bring an audience with them. Reality television has become a legitimate bridge into larger entertainment opportunities. And when you look at the qualities decision-makers want, Remy Ma checks nearly every box. She already has a built-in fan base. She has a life story that feels cinematic before a camera even starts rolling. She has credibility within the culture. She understands television because she spent years in front of cameras. She has crossover appeal, name recognition, and audience engagement across multiple demographics. If you're building a development slate and looking for people who can attract viewers immediately, it's not difficult to understand why her name keeps appearing near the top of those conversations. Now let me add another layer, because this is where things get deeper. Historically, female rappers have faced a unique kind of skepticism whenever they branch out into other entertainment spaces. People often say things like, "She's doing movies because the music isn't working anymore," or "She's moving into television because the charts slowed down." We've heard those narratives for years, but what's interesting is how rarely that same criticism is directed toward male artists making identical moves. When male rappers expand into acting, the industry calls it growth. It gets framed as smart business. It gets celebrated as evolution. Yet when women make the same move, some people immediately treat it as a backup plan. That's a double standard worth acknowledging, because nothing about Remy Ma's current situation looks like a retreat. Her name is still active in music conversations. Her public appearances continue generating attention. Her reality television footprint still exists. The entertainment opportunities are being added on top of everything else, not replacing what already exists. And that's the distinction many critics keep missing, while strategists are paying very close attention. Now let's talk about the comparison that refuses to disappear from the conversation. Whether people like it or not, discussions about Remy Ma often lead directly into discussions about Papoose and the different directions fans believe both careers are taking. According to the online narrative, Papoose appears focused on live stream content, themed releases, public appearances, and conversations connected to existing headlines. Meanwhile, Remy Ma is reportedly spending time on production sets, in development discussions, promoting projects, and building relationships that could lead to future opportunities. Again, that's the public perception being discussed online. But what makes it interesting isn't the individuals involved, it's the difference in strategy. One path focuses on creating new assets, the other focuses on responding to current conversations. And in entertainment, that distinction matters more than people realize. To be fair, there's nothing inherently wrong with commentary. Commentary creates attention. Commentary can create income. Commentary can even build influence. But over a decade-long timeline, builders usually gain the advantage. Why? Because builders create things they can own. Commentary often depends on moments that eventually disappear. Assets grow, headlines fade. That's why so many people find Remy Ma's current positioning interesting. The projects she's attaching herself to today have the potential to exist long after the current news cycle is forgotten. And honestly, that's the part of this story that deserves the most attention. There's another detail fans have noticed that mainstream coverage hasn't fully discussed. Look closely at how it has been presented during recent promotional campaigns. The branding feels less like a traditional rapper rollout and more like the positioning of an actress or entertainment personality preparing for a larger transition. The magazine features feel cinematic. The interviews focus on storylines and future projects rather than simply songs and singles. The visual presentation feels more red carpet than a recording booth. Those shifts don't happen accidentally. That type of repositioning usually comes from a coordinated strategy. It comes from teams thinking several moves ahead. And when every appearance, interview, and project starts pointing in the same direction, it becomes difficult to dismiss it as coincidence. Which brings me to the biggest takeaway of all. I don't think Remy Ma is simply having a moment. I think she's executing a long-term campaign. A multi-platform, multi-year expansion strategy that appears to have been unfolding quietly for quite some time. The latest Lifetime project isn't the entire story. It's one chapter inside a much larger narrative that's still developing behind the scenes. While many people remain focused on daily headlines, social media reactions, and temporary controversies, the more significant moves are usually happening elsewhere. They're happening in development meetings, they're happening on production sets, they're happening in contract negotiations and project planning sessions. That's where careers are expanded, that's where influence grows, that's where long-term power is built. And from the outside looking in, it appears Remy Ma has been spending a lot of time in exactly those rooms. So now I'll ask the same question many fans have been debating. What do you think the next move is? Could another Lifetime project be on the horizon? Is a streaming series the next logical step? Could a documentary finally tell her story from beginning to end? Maybe a biographical film? Maybe a production deal that puts her on the ownership side of the business? Maybe something nobody has even predicted yet? Whatever the answer is, one thing feels clear. The next chapter may arrive sooner than most people expect. And before I wrap this up, I want to leave one final thought. Every time a Black woman with a complicated story, a difficult past, and obstacles stacked against her breaks through another barrier, that achievement becomes bigger than one individual career. It becomes proof for countless other women who were told they were too late, too old, too controversial, too difficult, or too far removed from success to ever get another opportunity. That's what makes stories like this resonate, because whether you agree with every move or not, the larger message remains powerful. When people tell you your best chapter is already behind you, sometimes the strongest response isn't an argument. Sometimes the strongest response is building something so undeniable that the results speak for themselves.